이것이 하늘의 검!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2016 League of Legends KeSPA Cup. We're underway with our first series of the night. CJ RO.12 taking on ESC Ever. Game one, it certainly looked like Ever took them on pretty well.
Yeah, Ever definitely took them on a bus trip that game. 16-2 was the final score, and that was an absolute annihilation. So I'm curious to see what sort of pick and ban CJ RO.12 is going to go with in Game 2 here, because if they go with the same sort of style, it does look like that a lot of the fundamentals are missing right now, so I don't think that's a good idea.
Right, when it comes to things like team communication, a big difference between both the teams. You saw there right in game number one, it was just completely different. We had ESC Ever able to pull off huge team fights, very well coordinated, and while there was that one glimmer of hope for CJ RO.12, a lot needs to change for them to pull it back here in game number 2.
Yeah, and I don't feel like anything was really too revealed by ESC Ever. A lot of unconventional picks, well, at least relative to their role. Nautilus up there in top lane again did very well against the Kennen pick from Seoul, and the Flex Varus is definitely a little bit problematic, so we might actually see that banned away from ESC Ever here, moving into game number 2. One of the things I'm curious to see, though, if it will remain, is the Twisted Fate ban, because they banned it away against CJ RO.12 when they had red side counterpick, and so now that CJ RO.12 has blue side, I wonder if the TF will remain banned, given that it's first pick.
Right, TF not an uncounterable champion by any means, so if you are able to give that away, maybe some different picks to come in there. Now, we did see, out of all of the CJ RO.12 players, who really impressed you the most as we get in here to champion picks and bans?
I feel like the only CJ RO.12 player that played well that game was Sky, because you almost can't fault him for anything that happened or anything that went wrong, except for maybe his recall timings, but there's a lot more that goes into that we don't know about because we can't hear the comms.
Right, well, we are into the ban phase of game number 2. CJ swapping over to the blue side, ESC Ever on the red, and still looking for our first ban to come out. It's Varus, so no real surprise there. Expected to see that in game 1, but kind of business as usual. Once again, that is banned out against Tempt or now Loken. And there is the TF ban once again, just like you were talking about.
Yep, and so the Twisted Fate ban, they have to be reading into that from somewhere or somehow. They are not psychics, so I don't think that's going to be the case. And the Olaf ban, I don't feel like Olaf was really the reason that CJ RO.12's game went the way that it did. So that's a little bit peculiar, because it was honestly just Bless's roots that were completely outclassing Reach.
Right, this is a little bit of a harkening back to the last time these two teams played in the promotion tournament for this season. This is actually, in those games, Twisted Fate was banned out every single time by ESC Ever. So this is kind of the same thing all over again. Now we get a chance to see the Poppy ban as well. One of the top tier top laners, no buffs, but just super solid while other champions are being changed around. So nice to see her taken out of the rotation. Of course, coming up next, we should see the next ban here on your screens in just a second.
Yeah, and I can't see CJ actually letting ESC Ever have Nidalee, because I'm of the belief that she still is completely busted, and she is banned once again. But the Poppy ban from ESC Ever, I think, is targeted particularly at Seoul, because his other comfort pick was the Kennen, and maybe they're, determining that, okay, he didn't play that well on it, so let's give it to him again because we know that he can't play Rumble, or let's make him try to show us something else.
All right, well, there is the Vladimir pick. Vladimir, of course, sort of the other champion that Sky was incredibly well known for, along with his Talia. Now, I don't think we're going to see Talia here once again, but still so much left open. It's going to be a first pick Jace, which you guys should be able to see there on your screen, for Seoul. So getting to play kind of that same style of aggressive range top lane champion. I kind of want to see what Crazy is going to pull out here, because I don't think we're going to see Nautilus V2, and with no Syndra ban, that could definitely be in the cards as well.
Well, the problem is if you're not first picking Syndra right now, there's a problem. There's absolutely no excuse not to pick Syndra unless you have something prepared to maybe really surprise a Syndra and do something to her. But honestly, I can't see a reason to give away the best mid lane champion by far in the game right now, and also give Bless his Elise, which is one of his 3 bread and butter champions.
Well, there is the Syndra pick like you talked about. The Elise taken by Bless as well, denying Reach, his kind of signature trademark champion. If you guys get a chance to watch Reach in the TCL last year, he was just pulling out Elise non-stop, incredibly high win rate with that, and that's not going to be available to him this time around. The next couple of picks here are going to be really, really interesting when they do actually show up here on your screen. Not a whole lot to say about them just yet because they haven't showed up. There they are. It's going to be a Karma and Jin locked in for CJ Entis.
Yeah, so the Jin is up there for Momo, and that does mean that Caitlyn is on board for Locan. So far in solo queue, he's been playing a lot of Caitlyn and a lot of Ashe, both of which do very well against Jin. And Jin Karma, very lane-dominant bully lane, one of the most popular that we also got to see at Worlds. So we're going to see how ESC ever responds to this, because they have a lot of direction that they can go with. The Syndra and Elise doesn't really force you into any sort of style.
Those Bard and Caitlyn being hovered over, that would be one duo lane option for ESC. They have shown a remarkable ability to play a lot of different combinations down there, Locan and Totoro. And it's actually changed and locked in there as a Thresh Ashe lane.
Yep. So Thresh and Ashe again. And Totoro, not so bad on the Thresh last game. Remember we talked about, he had one of the better performances on ESC Ever's team. So the Ashe pick, I think, is standard in response to the Jin, because there's not a lot of 80 carries available right now in terms of what is not completely outside of the norm.
Well, we did get a chance to see Varus, so already dipping a little bit outside the norm already. Coming in here, 2 last picks for CJ Entis, hovering over the Varus Lee Sin. Do they want to give this Lee Sin to Reach again? Because he seemed kind of ineffective in game number 1. Still hovering over it. It's locked in.
It is locked in, so Reach going to be on Lee Sin again. And I don't feel that comfortable with it, because again, CJ Entis has this semi-aggressive, heavily setup-reliant team again. They do have the gear that they can go into some sort of cope via the Jin and the Jace, and obviously the lasers that come out of Victor, but it's not a team composition I would expect to have seen out of them, given their Game 1 performance.
Now, Ever did save their top lane pick for last. Hovering over that Pantheon, maybe a little excited. I'm not sure it's going to get locked in. That would certainly be a big surprise to me, and it is changed there at the last second to an Echo. So much more standard to see that Echo out there. Of course, Echo will be changed a lot in the upcoming patch, the Assassin changes, but currently super tanky Echo is most likely what we're going to see out of Totoro. How does that fare versus Soul's Jace, though?
Not entirely sure how Totoro is going to fare in this matchup against...
Well, it's crazy it's going to be playing it.
Crazy, right. But if Echo does get to the Sunfire Cave and the Trinity Force of Dead Man's Play, it becomes really problematic. And honestly, there's no way to keep Echo out of your backline if you're CJ Entis. So if he does get to that 3-4 item spike, it's going to be a lot of problems for CJ as the game develops. And Syndra in mid lane against Victor...
oh boy.
I hope Sky can really show us something, because I feel like that can get really ugly real quick, especially if he doesn't take cleanse.
Well, we've seen montage videos or like Faker highlights of how to dodge every skill shot in lane. Maybe Sky is going to show us his fancy fees. He avoids those dark orbs being thrown out there by Temps. I don't know. It's going to be a rough job for him. And do have to answer the question: was it worth first picking that Jace for Soul, a new player here on CJ Entis, really looking to show off what he offers to the team? They first picked him as champion, the Jace. Is that really the priority? CJ to bring things back here in game number 2.
About to jump into game number 2 here in just a second.
There's the lineup, the final champions and players for CJ Entis. A little bit of a lackluster performance by Reach as Lee Sin gets to redeem himself here in game number 2. Of course, switching things back over to ESC Ever. Looks like they have, okay, it's a little bit backwards on our screen. but I was going to say that is not Mad Life on your screen. But this is going to be both of our teams here. Mad Life on that support. We are about to get into game number 2. So get out there, tell your friends, let everyone know, hashtag KeSPA Cup, that this is going on, because game number 2 between CJ Entis and ESC Ever starts almost right now. Hadn't given another question to Captain Jack, but we are about to get into this game. So yeah, hashtag KeSPA Cup. You can tweet at KeSPA or use KeSPA LOL on Facebook. Let friends know about it there, because these games are actually going to be a great way to show off some brand new talent. These teams in potentially LCK, maybe in Challengers Korea. A lot of fluctuation going on. So CJ will be coming into this match right now against ESC Evers. So get out there, let your friends know. Game 2 starts right now. CJ will be fighting back from a 0-1 score after game number 1. Welcome back, everybody. Game number 2 here. The ESC with a very strong draft against a CJ lineup that really puts a lot on Reach and Soul this game to make that aggression work.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if they're planning to try to make a lot of that aggression work, because Sky is running heal against Tempt and Bless's Syndra Elise combo, and honestly, he has a lot of moxie doing that, because if Syndra gets 1 kill and it's before 6 minutes and Sky isn't able to recall into that Hex Core, the lane is just over, and Tempt is just going to be completely unstoppable.
And if you ever had to pick a matchup, jungle mid matchup to run Cleanse into, I feel like this is probably on top of your list. So Sky's going to have those fancy feats, not just to dodge the Dark Orbs in lane, but also to avoid Bless's ganks coming in. Of course, it's not even just about that mid lane matchup. We get to see whether or not Soul is just going to be dominant on that Jace in the top lane. When I was checking him out a little bit earlier, he did have quite a few games on Jace, but it was just like he was mostly a tanky top lane player, at least when he was on Spenu Korea previously. So things to look at as we get into our second game, rather. Getting a chance to check out the way that the jungle matchups are going. So this is actually going to allow Loken and Totoro to actually take a camp early on, so they're going to get that Gromp, come back into lane, and Momo and Mad Life haven't even pushed this yet. Okay, well, that's a little bit of a cheeky way to actually blow Loken's heal already. Oh no, here comes Reach. He's going to get on to Bless there. Bless taking a lot of damage. Will he be forced to flash? Looks like they should wait for the cooldown to come up. Oh, Reach not going to go for the kill, and doesn't get the red buff either.
Yeah, I actually want to point out something that I failed to mention in Champion Select. When you have a blue side Lee Sin with the blue side Victor, it is a little bit painful because you can't give Victor that blue buff early on to alleviate the pressure, because Lee Sin can't start bottom. So when ESC ever knows, or they think possibly, that CJ Entis is starting bottom on the golems, then you know that Lee Sin is on the left-hand side of the map. It is illogical to assume that he'll take the blue early on. So there's a very high chance that he actually moves to invade Bless. And so the fact there was no vision to prevent that from happening is a little bit peculiar.
Especially when you can tell, hey, Lee Sin's actually just not going to be starting on the bottom side of the map. Might have wanted to ward up for that early on. Now, a ward over the wall at the Raptor camp will scout Reach running to his own red buff, so he's going to be a little bit behind in his own jungle as far as buffs are concerned, but he did get that Raptor camp steal away from Bless.
Yep. And now Bless moving in to the left-hand side of the map, and this is basically where he wants to focus his attention right now, because after the trade that happened level 1 in the bottom lane, Loken and Totoro are completely content to just sit back and try to farm, while Bless looks to just apply pressure to top and mid lane, because that's where all the action can happen.
He's actually going to not just steal the blue buff, but hand it over to Tempt early on, so that is actually such a big swing with Tempt, already on a very strong champion, now with that blue buff advantage.
Yeah, and Breach's route is a little bit bizarre. It feels like a very solo QE route, where he heads bottom, maybe assuming that Bless is going to be there, so it would have been a perfect counter gank.
There's the heartbreak by Reach. Yeah. Checks the blue buff, nothing there. Now he is going to get free buffed.
Yeah, and it's already, I mean, Bless is completely demolishing Reach, and we're only 4 minutes into the game, and I can't express actually how far behind Reach is right now, and how telegraphed all of his routes are for the next 3 minutes.
And as the jungle discrepancy grows, that also affects the other lanes. Maybe Soul does get an advantage on his first pick, Jace. It's not going to matter if he does get ganked quite a bit. Now, Reach coming up to his Wolf Camp already sees that the Merc Wolves have been taken. Bless already out of there with a big Wolf Spirit steal.
And that was a nice juke of the tower aggro by Tempt, and lots of pressure already being applied in mid lane. Now you can see that Bless is able to move back in, and now he's going to be able to be at his rates, and he can just play defensive on the left side of the river, protecting Tempt.
Lands on a Mad Life. There's the shield, but Defiance is not going to get him completely out of dodge, setting things up for a lot of combined lockdown, and Loken and Totoro actually taking a decent amount of harass. They do have the potions to heal things back up, but keep an eye there. And oh, mid lane, here comes Reach. Now Tempt is very far pushed forward. Ghost immediately used to help get him out of there. Tempt legitimately 2v1ing, knowing that Sky very low on health and mana.
Wow, this is so bad for CJ RO.12 right now.
You can just see the difference of how far behind Reach is at that point. Not really even scaring Tempt that much.
It's not even just that Reach is behind, it's Sky is behind. He only has 29 CS. That is not a type of recall that Victor wants to have.
Long range grab, hits, force the flash out of Momo. Exhaust is down there, gets the Lantern to pull Bless in. Can they finalize it? Yes, they do. Bless taken out already. The dive not committing on to Mad Life, but First Blood once again goes to ESC, and there's the chase all in from Soul in the top lane. Not quite able to take out Crazy.
Now they're both going to recall. So definitely though, Crazy gets the better end of that as he has more CS as he touches base. So he comes out ahead in the recall war. And we're just going to take a look at bottom lane again. Loken, his heal had just came up, and CJ RO.12 definitely knows that. Mad Life, no friends, no time with spells, and that hook absolutely perfect. The exhaust comes out onto Loken, but it was at the absolute worst time, as Loken wasn't even doing any damage at that point. And just like that, the advantage that they did have in bottom lane is completely gone.
It is out of there. Totoro also perfect position to land that double play. Didn't convert for 2 kills, but still really, really strong performance. And now Bless at it again, up here in the top lane, going deep underneath that turret. Now Crazy will be able to break that turret aggro with the Chrono Break, and actually not committing for that kill. Do you think Bless could maybe still committed onto Soul and gotten out alive?
I think he could have. It really depends on his cooldowns, but it also depends on how are they reading Reach. Right. Because if they trade for the kill onto Soul, it is nice because he loses the minion XP. But if Reach ends up following up and getting a kill, it would enable him a little bit back into the game. So it looks like ESC Ever just choosing to play it safe right there.
Okay, good decision making there. Better safe than sorry. Ever, little by little, ever so slowly, getting themselves back into a little bit of an advantage. 1500 not insurmountable, but especially with ganks like we saw executed on the bottom lane, and with Bless's early jungle dominance, looking good.
Yep. And unfortunately, Tempt's Rome not going to be able to do anything as he was spotted on top of the board, and this is the power.
The Ashhole right onto Momo there, completely locked down, trying to get out as much damage as possible, but Loken able to come in there and take him out. Now, Bless is coming down here, so will Totoro go for the dive? It looks like they will, but once again, like you talked about, do need to be careful for Reach. They do back off in time.
Yeah, and that's that level 6 spike that Jhin doesn't have a very good way of handling unless he has a support equipped to deal with it. And that's one of the reasons that Ashe is able to stand up to Caitlyn and Jhin, who are basically the king and queen of ADC right now.
There they are. Now, you know, Reach is down here in the bottom lane, maybe for babysitting duty, but Totoro and Loken are already out of there, and especially with what we're seeing going on in the mid lane, Tempt just absolutely dominant. Let's check out this 2v2 again.
Yeah, so Loken hits level 6, they chain their CC beautifully, and then you can see that they're trying to maximize damage onto Mad Life because they know that Bless is coming down too, so obviously you want him as soft as possible to try to get that dive off onto him. But then Totoro takes too many tower shots, and there is the possibility of Reach being there, and so they are forced to back off.
And there was really good communication to say, are we going to go for this dive? Maybe yes. And then as soon as they said no, everybody backs off. Great disengage in ESC. Ever come out with yet another kill. So kind of cool to see the way that that is affecting the game as a whole. Mobility boots purchased by Bless to really get his way around the jungle.
Yeah, and right now I'm a little bit confused why ESC ever weren't electing to freeze the bottom lane, because Momo was already in a very bad spot, and they have to know that Lee Sin is going to be on the left-hand side of the map. So it's questionable why they didn't just pull it back a little bit further, because that would have put CJ into some way too bad of a spot.
Well, it definitely might have changed things. It's now coming bottom. Nice dodge on the hook there by MadLife. Tempt and Bless down behind enemy lines. It looks like they will ditch the mission. Unsuccessful roam to the bottom lane, but we will be successful at least starting this Inferno.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any chance for a contention here because they know exactly where Lee Sin is.
Yep, way up on the top half of the map. Nothing to do but give away Inferno Drake at 10 minutes here to ESC Ever uncontested.
Yeah, Bless going to be able to finish that with that. And also, I really like the mobility boots by Bless because it seems like he recognizes how much he's outplaying Reach. And the mobility boots is just letting him be basically everywhere at once.
Absolutely, and Reach is going to go for a Warrior Enchant upgrade first item, and I don't really know if he seems to be all-inning really on this aggression that's just not working out.
Yeah, already, I mean, mid lane is super far behind, and this is what I was worried about and why I was curious of what is the Lee Sin pick meant to do. And when he fell behind early on because of the failure to execute Bless, stuff just basically went downhill, especially because of his early misread of what was happening, where he tried to maybe set up for a counter or a match kink in bottom, and it just backfired.
Well, here we are back in bottom. Reach once again now on the bottom side, but I don't know if he's really down here to farm the Krugs or to make something happen. It seems like if you're trying to be this aggressive, you want to put yourself in a position to turn that in, capitalize on something. Now, Totoro might be getting slowed out. There's the curtain call, slowed him down there, chained up against the wall. Reach was never going to hit that Q. He gets grabbed instead, pulled into the box. The kick backwards is not a knock-up, and Reach forced to flash out after jumping into the thresh hook.
I don't know what was being said by CJ when that was happening, because that was just completely uncharacteristic.
Miscommunication there at its finest, and I don't know what Reach was down there for, but catching hooks is something even fish don't want to do.
But even the length at which he threw his Q was so weird.
Oh, nice cancel out there on the To The Skies. Soul take it down very low. We'll be able to get away with that acceleration gate, but oh my gosh, so close to getting caught out, venturing into woods unseen.
Yep, and looks like Reach was doing wolves. I can't entirely see, but definitely he needs to run up to top lane to save that turret. You do not want Echo to get a first blood tower.
It looks like he's going to be close, but Reach just in the nick of time will reach the top lane to save that turret for a little bit later.
Yep.
So as far as first turret blood goes, hasn't been taken just yet. Top lane seems very vulnerable, but might need to get a little bit of extra babysitting to keep that first blood, like you said, from going over to Crazy, who could just run away with that Tank Echo matchup.
Yep. And
already like 20 CS up in the matchup anyway.
At this point, it's really difficult to know what can CJ do, because they're also fighting against an Inferno Drake right now, which is just going to continue to keep adding scaling. And they can't make anything happen in mid lane. Nothing's probably going to happen in top lane because Crazy is way too tanky against physical damage.
Totoro and MadLife both doing a lot of dodging there, flashing right on top of Sky. That's going to shield their Reach is in the mid lane in time. Ash Arrow whips right on through. Not going to be coming out with a kill on Tempt, who is just barely escaping. It's his turn to get out just barely now. Oh, Bless very, very low. Tempt, where are you going, man? He's trying for the execute between these turrets, and Reach is on a mission. Can he find him in time? Looks like Tempt will execute successfully.
Yep. And that's a pretty big win because CJ definitely needed something to try to get them back into the game, and ESC ever denies that of them. So definitely maintaining their advantage and keeping up pressure.
Totoro on these roams, very, very effective. Coming up to the mid lane, still effective in that shenaniganry, and even still up here in the lower jungle. Oh, okay, Totoro just got robbed. There's alarms sounding off. He probably should have had that. Just barely out of range. Great positioning there by MadLife to escape the top lane. Continual trades between Crazy and Soul. It certainly seems like that CJ Jace is starting to fall further behind.
Yeah, one of the things is that Echo still has 2 corrupting potions available, and remember, Reach is on the right-hand side of the map, and that top lane turret is about to go down, so Soul, without having teleport up, he doesn't have the luxury of being able to recall, so he has to try to stick it out and find ways to survive and all in.
Sky also having a little bit of a rough time in the mid lane matchup, has not been able really to exert a lot of pressure, but Tempt is the sole casualty after having escaped, well, somewhat escaped that last fight, so maybe that pressure is going to start to shift that. Either way, top lane turret very low, bottom lane turret dropping lower, down to just a few hundred HP. The ESC take that 3v2 to push it in.
And now it looks like there will be some temporary downtime as both Bless and Tempt are recalling. But this recall is really the big one for Syndra because she's going to come back to lane with Morel and Amakan. So now Tempt is going to be able to stay in mid lane for quite a while, and with Dragon coming up in 1 minute, that's going to be pretty problematic. Crazy probably going to recall right here, get his item, and walk down to Dragon. That seems like the most likely route that we can expect to see.
We'll see if he does make it all the way down there. Of course, Dragon spawning very, very soon. And as soon as that Inferno Drake comes up, and we've already seen one, Inferno Drake number 2, you can only stack so many of those up in a row. Although I believe at Worlds, getting triple Inferno Drake was a bad thing, or triple Drake of any kind. But this is definitely not Worlds. This is the KeSPA Cup, and I think those are still going to be pretty good for ESC.
Yep. And they are in the driver's seat to make sure that they get this. And I don't see, assuming Reach does not pull off a steal onto it, ever going over to CJ from this position at least.
Well, if there's a champion that can steal it, I mean, Lee Sin's on top of the list there. First turret blood does finally, or first and second rather, going over to ESC Ever. No bonus for the second one, but it still counts. 2-0 in that regard. As far as objectives is concerned, really looking for Reach to start helping his team secure some of them. Inferno Drake now on the map.
Yep. And Crazy just continuing to apply pressure up there into Soul, and it's a little bit bizarre to see him up there, given that he still does have teleport advantage, because he could have just walked all the way down. But it doesn't seem like it's going to matter all that much.
Well, there's Reach in position, but he's not going to go for it. Smite's good, and that is the second Inferno Drake for ESC Ever. Coming down, there's the Ash Arrow, does hit the stun on to Reach. Mad Life and Soul, Sky all in the mid lane, but it looks like with ESC Ever piling on, they're going to find one. Finding the second one into Sky and Soul underneath the turret. The hook's good! Lands in onto Sky. It'll be a double kill for Tempt, and Momo can only deadly flourish from a long ways away as that fight goes way in favor of Ever.
Yeah, and they're going to look to pick up Rift Herald right here. And Rift Herald on Echo is pretty bonkers, and that's not something that you want if you're going to be CJ or Soul's Jace in particular. And it looks like mid-tier 1 turret is also going to fall because it doesn't look like Soul's going to be able to defend this. So already, ESC Ever, double Inferno Drake, and they're looking to extend.
Oh, the stun does land a flash away from that hook. Bless was, or rather Totoro, flashed in for the hook and still didn't hit it. Doing the utmost there, not successful, but that is a Rift Herald. Crazy.
And now approaching 18 minutes, we're going to jump into a replay really quick. So Crazy actually missed parallel conversions right here slightly, but it doesn't matter because Temp turns out he's able to hit a multi-man stun on that Syndra, and Reach just goes down immediately after Mad Life.
This hook is disgusting.
Yeah, that hook turns out that having Cleanse might have been a nice spell, but unlucky.
Yeah, I mean, nice deadly flourish there at the end. That's my optimism right there, LS. But in the end, crazy good start for ESC Ever. As they do continue now to not only dominate the objective game, the team fight game, they're already starting to get the vision up deep in the enemy jungle. Keep that ward in the Raptor Bush and continue now wrapping around towards the bottom half of the map to put pressure on that second tier turret.
Yeah, and a little bit peculiar actually. It looks like Leandri's Torment is being built on Tempt, and that's not an item that you generally see on Syndra. So I guess if he will complete that,
expecting to go up against a lot of magic resistance.
Maybe I think what the thought process is hey, we have 2 Inferno Drakes, so even though it doesn't give a ton of AP stats, they don't really need it. So the HP that it grants in the passive is going to be more than enough, given that their stats are already so bolstered by those double Drakes.
Oh, there goes the arrow, swing and a miss. on to Sky. Crazy's still going for it. And now it's going to be a 1v2 for him. Temp flashing behind enemy line. The multi-man stun hits there on to Sky. Takes him out. Mad Life soon to follow. Crazy ulting back out to break not only the Chronos, but also 2 skulls along with it. 7-0 the score for ESC as they push in CJ base.
Yep. And I don't think there's going to be any way to actually stop the inhibitor from going down. I'm very doubtful that the game is going to end right here. That was actually a nice little poke by Soul, but okay. Well, Jason, I don't know how you miss a Jhin ultimate that many times.
Perhaps the curtain call is to close it so nobody can see what just happened there. Shockwave onto Bless and Jace. That was just we'll take him low. He's going to take the blue buff in exchange, so I think that's a pretty good trade.
Yep. Now it looks like they're going to recall, and honestly at this point ESC Ever is so far ahead that all they have to do is get defensive items, and there's nothing that CJ Antis can do. Because already, I mean, Victor's itemized a little bit defensively, so he's not dealing the damage that he wants. In this replay alone, this is just an example of how far ahead they are, and it turns out Syndra, she can press 4 buttons and basically kill you. Mad Life going down there, they can't do anything, and honestly, Crazy's too tanky, and at this point of the game, there's no real hope for any sort of resistance.
Yeah, and the 2 points from that dunk attempt used to get the 2 kills might be 2 wins here for ESC as they crush that team fight and now start to look towards Baron.
Yep, and Iceborne Gauntlet is the item of choice for Crazy, so it's not going to be the Trinity Force, which is alright, as he looks to push and siege the bottom tier 3 turret. And that's another Inferno Drake, by the way, coming up if the game actually makes it that long.
Okay, well, may the Drakes be ever in your favor. At least they seem to be this time around. 11k gold advantage here, just crested for forever as they really put the pressure on everywhere they need to. Thought they were actually going to go for Baron, but continuing to put pressure either on top lane, pressing into the jungle, now finally pings back onto the giant purple worm.
Yep. And honestly, the only real response that...
Don't mind Temp just taking my orbs for a walk.
Yep.
That's what he was doing. Now waiting right around the corner, swing, and there is going to be the arrow hit. Chain stun on to reach, he's out of there. No jungler for CJ means a much easier Baron forever.
Yeah, and it's a little weird why he would even move into a position like that, because they had the board onto Baron, so they know that they weren't doing it. So why even walk that far forward?
And now Crazy just completely zoning everybody out. No question, this is going to be the ESC Ever. Baron taken at 23 minutes. Domination by the 9th place team in LCK.
Yep. And it looks like Crazy going to move down to bottom lane, and they're trying to go for a perfect game.
It's perfect so far. I mean, I'm just like checking off the list of things that need to happen. They're all there. So now pushing down the top lane after the Baron, not looking to give up any kills objectives so far, and really nothing standing in their way. Even Crazy onto Soul, that first pick Jace, not paying off for CJ.
Yep. And it looks like they're not picking up the Mountain Drake yet, although that could be where Bless is headed. Definitely no reason not to. Just helps them raise those towers a little bit quicker, and that is what he's doing right now. So now I don't know why Loken and Totoro seem to be headed. Okay, they're just gonna pick up the red buff and then probably look to top lane because this is very standard timing to initiate a 4-0-1.
Should point out it was a Mountain Drake, not an Inferno Drake. Swing and miss on that arrow. The teleport. Okay, Crazy gets in, gets out. Will rejoin the rest of Ever. Oh my god! Mad Life forced a flash from a screen away. LS, which is a pretty good champion.
Yep.
Able to do that, of course. Tempt very good at playing her. We've seen lots of cool plays there. Now, okay, Totoro's going to jump right into Soul. Jace does have a lot of damage. Still alive though, and Totoro will survive. Tempt to turn around. 1 kill, 2 kills, 3 down off of Totoro getting caught out.
Yeah, the problem is that Totoro, like, if you just look at the level advantage that ESC has across all of their champions, it's not just levels, those are base stats as well. So they have more armor, more magic resistance, more HP. And so what may seem like a good situation is not actually. So it's a little bit deceptive. And even if you do pick off Totoro, it's not worth committing yourself, maybe even
oh my goodness, a flash away, but Sky's still getting stunned there. Can they turn it back around? Temp will die. Crazy still in there, but Sky did wind up going down. There's the Ash Arrow coming in. No more fighting because the game will end with a 12-1 score. ESC Ever coming out on top 2-0 CJ Enton.
Yeah, and that was another extremely one-sided game by ESC Ever. And even though they looked really, really well, I'm not going to be so quick to say that they're some super, super good team because CJ wasn't playing that good. So as they advance further into the tournament, we're really going to get to see have they actually improved that much since LCK. Right now, it does look like it, at least in terms of Bless's performance. And Totoro looked really well this game too.
Yeah, no real issues here for ESC Ever. Right up until the very end, they were playing that perfect game. So you can't really find too many flaws with that. Just getting back into the swing of things after a long vacation, and it doesn't seem like Ever missed a beat.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, it was the same problem that was in game number 1. It seems like CJ Entis picks a team composition that they're not currently equipped to actually play, and so a lot of the weaknesses of it are exposed. And I mean, Reach may as well have just picked Evelyn because he was off the map anyway, so maybe they would think he's on the map because he's invisible, but that Lee Sin just didn't do anything in game 1 or 2.
It certainly did not. He didn't go for any steals, didn't have any super crazy ganks aside from that one in game number 1. So still a lot of things to work out for CJ Entis as they will be playing in Challengers next season. They get a chance to show what they have here in KeSPA Cup, and well, that's going to be it for them as we head on stage for an interview with Young Young. Alright, this is going to be an interview with ESC Ever's head coach, Kim Garam. This is going to be him selecting his group for the round of 8. He's going to reach in his hand, and that is going to be a number 2. So he's going into the second group. The interview, of course, will be with the players, not with their head coach, who's just doing their draw for the group stage, the playoffs, coming up a little bit later on. Not sure if we're going to get this translated or not, but this is going to be asking him just a couple of different questions. Looks like we are not, but in the end, that is just going to be their group stage draw. Oh, it looks like his answers were, this is still going to be a tournament format, so we do still want to prepare our best and show our best job as we have our upcoming matches. All right, well, that is going to do it for question number 1. Looks like we have one more question coming his way. Now, to follow that up, he says that we are practicing really hard, but unlike last time, he feels like this might actually be a pretty hard tournament, so we'll just have to see how far we can go. So that's going to do it for our interview with the head coach of ESC Ever. Now we get a chance to come over to a player interview, which should be coming up here in just a second. So to draw there for ESC Ever, heading over to our MVP interview. Interview with our MVP today. It is Loken, AD carry for ESC Ever. He said, so it's pretty close. It's pretty cold today, Loken. What's with the short sleeves? Loken says, well, you know, I feel comfortable in this uniform, so it's about feeling comfortable.
최근에 다른 팀들이 CJ 엔트가 지금 엔트리가 새로 온 거잖아요. 근데 지금 팀이 맡은 지 얼마 안 됐음에도 불구하고 많이 잘한다는 소리를 들어가지고 좀 많이 긴장을 하고 들어갔어요.
Now Loken says, despite CJ Entis being a pretty new team, they prepared really hard because they heard that CJ Entis was playing a lot of scrims, so they wanted to be prepared. Also, he is really happy that the match went in their favor.
Yeah, you can ask.
Use the handheld mic to ask your question.
안녕하세요. How did he feel today, given the overall performance from the bottom lane?
일단 사실 버텀라인에 대해서 처음에 특히 두 번째 세트 같은 경우는 마찬가지고 상대편이 훨씬 더 압박이 좀 좋았던 장면들이 있었는데 여기에 대해서 그것들을 잘 극복해냈었던 그 마음이랄까 그 느낌? 어떤 느낌인지 좀 궁금하네요.
처음에 적팀분들이 라인전을 되게 잘하고 계셔가지고 1렙 구간에 그래서 되게 잘하는 거 생각을 하고 있었는데 결국엔 저희 정글러가 와서 킬을 따졌기 때문에 그 라인전을 이길 수 있지 않았을까 싶어요.
그럼 블레스에게도 한마디 해야죠. 블레스 고마우니까.
블레스님 오늘 캐리해주셔서 감사합니다. 우리 정글러 최강 정글러 제공만이 만든.
이런 느낌이었구나. 근데 평소에 님이라고 불러요? 블레스 님이라고요?
아니 그냥.
그렇죠.
높여주려고.
오늘은 님이니까 완전 님의 그런 분위기니까. 혹시 또 궁금한 점 있어요?
All right, my question will be, it's been a long time since we've seen ESC ever play. What have you worked on in your downtime?
지금 굉장히 ESC로서 좋은 경기를 좀 많이 했었었는데 어떻습니까? 이번 시즌 같은 경우는 마찬가지고 앞으로도 이제 어떻게 펼쳐낼 것인지에 대한 그런 궁금증이 분명히 있을 것 같고 이제는 ESC에게 집중하는 게 좀 달라졌잖아요. 이제 올라온 것도 좀 있으니까 이 부분에 대해서 한마디 해준다면요.
저희가 서머 때 챔피언스를 올라와서 되게 좀 성적이 안 좋았는데 이번 캐스파 컵에서는 작년에 보여줬던 면모를 꼭 보여드릴 수 있도록 열심히 하겠습니다.
부담이 좀 됐었죠, 사실.
네, 많이 되긴 했어요.
그럼 이번에는 국내 중계진의 이야기도 한번 들어볼까요? 먼저 누가 할까요? 네.
제가 먼저 하겠습니다.
네.
우선은 그 1경기에서 바로스를 선택했었는데 케이틀린을 상대하기 위한 픽으로 준비를 한 것인지 아니면
Captain Jack, great AD carry in his own right, asking his question here for Loken, asking if the Varus pick was intentional versus Caitlyn.
하는 걸 봤었는데 제가 그때 그 바로전에 좀 라인전을 많이 줬었거든요. 게임이 안 될 정도로. 그래서 좀 스트림에서 연습을 해봤는데 생각보다 사거리.
And Loken saying he was actually inspired from playing against the bottom lane Varus in solo queue that did really well against Caitlyn. So he tried it out in scrims and it turned out great. So he thought he'd play it tonight. It's time for Helios to ask a question.
노틸러스에 대한 의견이나 그런 거는 잘 무궁화 이름으로 나왔는지 그건 되게 궁금합니다.
단노틸?
So Helios asking about the Nautilus pick in game number 1.
탑에 있는 파트너 형이 그러니까 진재승 선수가 솔로 랭크에서 캐넨 상대로 노틸러스를 해봤는데 노틸러스가 많이 캐넨 상대로 할만하고 한타도 괜찮은 것 같다 이렇게 얘기를 해서
Kind of a similar story where their top laner had tried out Nautilus and Kennen, Nautilus versus Kennen in solo queue and found out that it's actually a matchup that works really well. So that's why he picked the Nautilus to play that matchup.
76분 20초의 경기 끝에 그 타이밍 페니지를 꺾는
Looks like final question coming in here.
그 수식어 말고 이제 로컨이 받고 싶은 수식어가 분명히 있을 것 같아요. 이번 캐스파 컵을 비롯해서 앞으로 이제 팬들이 로컨을 어떻게 바라봐줬으면 좋겠는지 그 마음에
Now Loken, is there any particular nickname or title that you want to claim for yourself coming in here into the KeSPA Cup? And he says, you know, people kind of see me as a slightly good AD carry, but I want to start being recognized as one of the best AD carries. So he's going to work very hard towards that goal. And that is going to do it for our first best of 3. Coming up next, we'll get to see our second best of 3 of the night between KEG Seoul, Kangdu Monster. KeSPA Cup returns right after this, so don't go anywhere.